The station was old, rusty, and it stank of synth oil and steamed meat, but Jenny Matthews was having the time of her life. She strolled through the alien bazaar with an oversized iced coffee clutched in one hand and a holographic camera in the other, snapping selfies beside every bizarre creature that didn't hiss at her. Her long auburn hair was tied up in a high ponytail, and she wore a faded denim jacket with patches that read, "I less than 3 Earth, not today Zog," and a picture of a grinning cat wielding a baseball bat. Her boots clinked with every step, Earth-standard steel toes, gifted by her boyfriend before he shipped out again. She missed him, but she also knew how to handle being alone. "Okay, so you're like half lizard, half accordion?" she asked a street vendor made entirely of translucent flaps and blinking eyes. The creature gurgled. "I'll take that as a yes. Work it, buddy." She spun and struck a pose, her camera clicking. There was something delightful about being the only human tourist in a place designed for 12-limbed beings with gills, mandibles, or antennae. She walked with the confidence of someone who had once navigated Times Square during New Year's Eve. This, just a bigger, slimier version. And yet, someone was watching. In the upper deck of the station's customs quadrant, Commander Vortal of the 9th Imperial Interrogation Fleet narrowed his lidless eyes. The human female was clearly atypical, bold, defiant, borderline unstable. Most of her species avoided the Empire's frontier zones. This one wandered in like she was hunting for brunch. He flicked his comms on, tag, and traced the human. Female. Denim armor. Coffee weapon. There was a pause on the other end. "Sir, you mean she's wearing a jacket and drinking a—" "Don't argue, Lieutenant. Use the drone." Below, Jenny wandered past a display of artificial gravity baubles, cooing as she hovered a few centimeters off the ground. Her boots clicked softly when she landed again, sipping through her straw and humming something suspiciously like "Take on Me." A nearby Plarvian child burst into tears. She waved apologetically. "You good, little guy? No hard feelings. I'm weird too." She didn't notice the orb above her head. By the time she did, she was already surrounded. Imperial enforcers descended like silent thunder, sleek black armor absorbing the bazaar's chaotic light. A force field snapped shut. Jenny blinked as the straw fell from her lips. "Okay, fellas," she said, raising her hands. "What is this, some kind of space TSA?" No answer. Then she was gone. They called it Facility LX-9, a sterile cube orbiting a dead star. Its corridors smelled like disinfectant and despair. Jenny sat chained to a floating slab in the middle of a chamber that hummed with alien power, her wrists secured by what felt like warm ice. Commander Vortal entered, dragging his voice behind him like a gravestone. "You are an unauthorized biological variable in an Empire-controlled quadrant." Jenny frowned. "I'm on vacation. You people got a tourist brochure right outside the spaceport. Come taste exotic gravity fruits and feel superior to lesser species." Ring any bells? Vortal didn't blink. His species didn't. Earth females do not travel alone without military oversight. Your behavior is statistically anomalous. "I'm statistically fabulous," she shot back. "And seriously, this is your idea of a welcome package?" He motioned to a subordinate, who extended a probe. "We will extract your memories. Determine the true purpose of your presence." Jenny recoiled. "Yeah, no. My brain's not for sale, buddy. We do not require consent." They activated the probe. Jenny screamed. 3 decks above, a data technician adjusted his monitors and frowned. The neural patterns from subject H03 were odd. Too much resistance. Not enough fear. Most species snapped or folded under the extractor. This one? She cracked jokes. Her pain tolerance was through the roof. Worse, she laughed halfway through. The technician hesitated, then pressed the override. In the chamber, Jenny slumped, breath ragged. Vortal approached. "You defy. You conceal. Your death is inevitable." Jenny coughed, then looked up at him, a bloody grin on her face. "You're gonna regret this," she whispered. "He's coming." "He." She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheek. "Cole." It was the last word she ever spoke. They incinerated the body. No ceremony, no documentation, just a short report filed to Empire Command under biological termination, insignificant species. The memory probe had yielded no military value, just clips of primitive rituals, emotional outbursts, and some inexplicable obsession with felines and food-based festivals. The case was closed. On Earth, 3 days later, a secure data packet was intercepted by an unauthorized receiver deep in the Appalachian Mountains. Inside the camouflaged facility, General Cole Riker stood alone in a training chamber, pounding a target dummy into splinters. He hadn't slept in 40 hours. He didn't need to. The AI voice chimed gently. General. Priority transmission. Facial match, Jenny Matthews. Status, deceased. The footage played. Cole didn't move. Not at first. Then his jaw clenched. Jenny. Laughing in that interrogation chamber, trying to stall. His Jenny. They didn't even know who she was. They hadn't even known to be afraid. He watched the death sequence 3 times. Not for clarity. For rage. Cole turned slowly. Picked up his jacket. The same one Jenny had patched up when he'd torn it in battle. He pulled it on, tight. Every breath he took hurt. Engage Protocol C. The AI hesitated. Sir, Protocol C is unauthorized. Command requires. I am command, Cole growled. And just like that, humanity's most unpredictable soldier was no longer on the books. By the time Earth Central Command noticed the breach, Cole Riker was already gone, along with 1 prototype stealth cruiser, 2 nuclear payloads, and Jenny's old mixtape, which he loaded into the ship system and played on loop. He called the ship Last Chord, because that's what she was. The last note that mattered. Far above the Imperial midrim, Fleet Marshal Craven reviewed a new report. Some human general had gone rogue. Intercepted traffic. Explosions in neutral sectors. Unconfirmed rumors of Imperial ships turning up hollowed out, with only a message scorched onto the walls. You took Jenny. Craven snorted. Barbaric sentimentality. Typical Earth nonsense. He tossed the report aside. That was his first mistake. His second was underestimating just how madly one human could love. Riker was a myth to many, a living threat to galactic bureaucracy. He'd once taken out an entire separatist faction with a fork and a bottle of hot sauce. He'd written a love letter to Jenny in the middle of a firefight. He believed in 2 things, disco ball grenades and vengeance. Now he believed in one, and his path was lit with the names of every alien that had touched her. He didn't send warnings. He sent wreckage. Transmissions of him carving his way through pirate nests, bribing information out of lowlifes with vintage chocolate bars and Earth cologne. Entire outposts vanished overnight, the words for Jenny seared into their landing pads. Empire Command grew nervous. This is a human acting on emotional impulse, Vordel insisted to the Council. Such beings burn out quickly. No one replied, because on the central holoscreen, the dreadnought Last Chord drifted past a destroyed blockade. Alone, undamaged, playing I Will Always Love You across all frequencies. Jenny had once joked that Cole would destroy the world for her. She didn't know he'd aim higher. Back on Earth, news of Jenny's death spread fast, too fast. But no official word came from command. Only silence. Families whispered. Soldiers wept. Jenny had been more than a face. She'd been hope. Sunshine. Humanity in its most genuine form. When someone like that is taken, something breaks. And what rose from the fragments was fire. Riker's former squad went dark. Intelligence agents found cryptic messages in vintage movie quotes. Resistance cells sprang up in Empire-controlled zones, with Earth flags stitched to their jackets. The phrase Jenny Lives became graffiti in back-alley stations. And the aliens didn't understand. Who was this Jenny? Why had this simple girl, barely trained, non-threatening, laughably underpowered, become the catalyst for chaos? Because she'd mattered. Not politically, not strategically, personally. And that's where the Empire had failed. They'd killed her like she was no one. But to one man, she'd been everything. And now the galaxy would burn just to balance the scales. Cole Riker stood at the helm of his stolen ship, eyes locked onto the Empire's border. He whispered her name once, softly, then leaned into the throttle. Above him, stars turned blood red. The war had begun. Cole Riker never bothered with doors anymore. He walked through them, literally. When the Earth Command Tribunal finally convened to question him, they were 3 minutes into their preamble when the reinforced entrance to the underground tribunal chamber exploded inward like a soda can under a jackboot. "Stand down," someone screamed. That someone no longer had a chair beneath him. Riker emerged from the smoke, dressed in a black tactical suit stitched with Jenny's initials across the collar. No insignia, no medals, just the scowl of a man running on vengeance, caffeine, and the shredded remains of his heart. "I'm taking the last chord," he said before anyone could protest. "And don't bother sending the Peace Corps or the Space Interceptor Squad. They won't catch me, and they won't stop me." Admiral Penfield, shaking from the blast, gripped his gavel like it could ward off demons. "General Riker, this is an unlawful breach of—" "I'm not a general anymore," Cole snapped, eyes burning with the kind of fury usually found in supernovas or Clint Eastwood films. "I'm a boyfriend with a vendetta. And I'm done asking for permission." By the time Earth Command scrambled fighters, Cole was already in orbit. The last chord responded to him like it had a soul, and that soul had seen a Tarantino movie marathon and wanted blood. The ship shimmered into invisibility, its stealth field pulsing as it tore across subspace with the snarl of a rock ballad. He had one mission: make the Empire regret Jenny Matthews. The last chord wasn't built for subtlety. It was an Earth prototype designed for multi-environment psychological warfare. It ran on solar fusion, raw spite, and cassette tapes. As Cole leaned back into the pilot's chair, Jenny's playlist fired up, and suddenly Living on a Prayer echoed through the command deck. "Hang on, baby," Cole muttered, gripping the controls. "Let's poke the beast." His first target wasn't military. It was worse. It was bureaucratic. The Empire's external relations, Node 71 by 3, was a floating administrative complex that handled interspecies visa permissions, tariff disputes, and diplomatic immunity claims. Cole didn't fire a single shot. He just hacked their primary transmission satellite and broadcast Jenny's execution footage into the station cafeteria during lunch. Screams. Vomit. One Vlorian diplomat fainted into his 12-flavored soup. Then came the message, burned in green font across every screen. "You took Jenny. I'm taking everything else." They still didn't take him seriously. They called it a propaganda prank, an anomaly. They didn't understand that Earth soldiers, real ones, weren't built for neat, logical conflicts. They were built for chaos. Cole Riker, in particular, was built for war the way sharks were built for water. He made his way across the midrim, taking out small communication nodes and stealth jammers, gathering data like a hoarder collecting sins. His technique was surgical, his style absurd. One station was crippled by nothing but a virus-laced video game embedded in a shipment of Earth retro consoles. "Why do the humans call this a Nintendo?" asked a blinking technician before the console exploded. Empire captains started adding his name to briefings. Human rogue asset, dangerous, unstable, not to be engaged directly. But no one understood the scale. Not yet. Cole wasn't just attacking. He was mocking them. He stormed a supply station wearing an alien janitor uniform and carrying a boombox on his shoulder. He hijacked a luxury cruiser, left the passengers unharmed, but changed every system voice to Jenny's old voicemail recording. He graffiti-tagged warships with her name using a laser scalpel and the lyrics to love songs. Each action chipped away at the Empire's image. Humans weren't supposed to be this clever, this unpredictable, this personal. They were supposed to follow rules, beg for mercy, file complaints. But Cole wasn't begging. He was showing the galaxy that they had made one fatal miscalculation. They'd touched something sacred, and he wasn't going to let them forget it. On the outer edge of Sector Q90, an Empire patrol ship picked up a lone signal. A distorted audio loop played through the void. Jenny was here. Captain Draz, an aging commander with a chest full of medals and zero patience, ordered the signal traced. They found nothing, just static and a single red scrunchie floating in zero gravity. "This is nonsense," Draws spat. "Find him." By the time they realized it was bait, the last cord was already in their engine room. Cole didn't kill them. He shut off life support, locked them in a break room with a week's supply of donuts and Earth cartoons, and left a post-it note on the captain's forehead. Not dead yet, but close enough. The story spread like wildfire. Human general. Rogue. Obsessed. Capable of dismantling ships with duct tape, a pack of gum, and grief-fueled rage. The rumors grew. Some said he drank the blood of alien governors. Others said he'd weaponized sarcasm. All Cole did was keep moving. Jenny had always been the planner, the steady one. She read books about stars and cried at animal rescue ads. She was the only one who could pull him back when the world felt too heavy. And now she was gone. He didn't want to be saved. He wanted them to know her name and feel it carved through them like he felt it etched into his bones. At the Imperial Nexus Relay on Gaia Prime, Cole found his first real challenge. Full security garrison. A fleet of interceptors. A small army. He walked in with a single combat drone and a boom mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said as his drone projected his image onto the central concourse, "have you heard the good word about Jenny Matthews?" Half the garrison opened fire. The other half ran. The drone exploded. 5 seconds later, the main server exploded. 10 seconds after that, every screen in the system displayed a picture of Jenny blowing a kiss. In the ship, Cole wiped sweat from his brow and leaned back. "I can't believe that worked." The AI chirped. Probability of success was 12.3%. "You are statistically irrational." Story of my life. He poured himself a drink from Jenny's favorite thermos and looked out at the stars. Somewhere, the Empire still thought this was temporary. A phase. A glitch in their otherwise orderly conquest. They were wrong. Fleet Marshal Craven now held emergency meetings twice daily. His advisors spun increasingly desperate strategies. Trap him with false coordinates. Bait him with mock transmissions. Send in the bounty syndicates. But the problem wasn't just Cole anymore. It was the ripples. Human colonies that had long kept quiet began sabotaging trade routes. Alien species, tired of Empire rule, began whispering about rebellion. Rebel groups painted Jenny's face on their banners. Her image became a symbol: purity, beauty, hope destroyed by the uncaring hand of tyranny. And Cole was their fire starter. He didn't intend to start a revolution. He just wanted revenge. But the galaxy loves a story, and the tale of a man who loved a woman so deeply that he defied a star-spanning empire, that story sang. Meanwhile, Cole tracked down one of the last names on his personal list, Commander Vortal, the alien who'd ordered Jenny's death. He found Vortal on a luxury asteroid base, guarded by elite cybernetic guards and the smug confidence of someone who believed bureaucracy was armor. Cole didn't shoot his way in. He infiltrated the system with a forged clearance code and a 2-minute loop of a janitor humming the Golden Girls theme. When he reached the core chamber, Vortal was sipping synthesized wine. "You," the commander spat, rising. "Me," Cole replied, cocking his head. "I brought you something." He threw a data chip onto the table. It projected Jenny's final minutes. Unedited. Every scream. Every defiant glare. Every time she said no. Vortal tried to speak. Cole cut him off. "I'm not here for revenge." The alien blinked. "I'm here to tell you something." Cole leaned in, voice low. "She died believing in something. Me. And now I'm going to make sure her name becomes the word people use to describe the end of empires." He left Vortal alive, shaking, defeated, because killing was too easy. Letting him live with the knowledge that he started the fall, that was justice. As the last cord departed the asteroid, Jenny's voice filled the cabin, recorded from an old voicemail. "Hey, it's Jenny. Leave a message after the beep. Unless you're Cole, then you better be bringing tacos." Cole smiled for the first time in weeks. "Don't worry, babe," he whispered. "I'm bringing the whole galaxy." Behind him, an entire system prepared to burn. They had laughed at him. That fact, more than any battle report or tactical error, would be remembered for centuries. The day the Galactic Empire chuckled over the antics of a single human madman, writing off his campaign as an emotional outburst destined to fizzle like cheap fireworks, was the day their legacy began to rot. Because Cole Riker didn't fizzle, he detonated. It began with the fall of Drift Point Sigma, a critical Empire communications relay orbiting a gas giant the size of Texas. Built into the rings of the planet, it was said to be untouchable due to the storm radiation shielding it. Cole called that a challenge. He didn't go through it. He went under it. Using an old mining route carved decades prior and long since abandoned due to frequent plasma surges, he threaded last chord through chasms of electromagnetic chaos with nothing but grit and a piloting AI modified with the personality of an 80s arcade machine. By the time he surfaced inside the security grid, he'd already broadcast Jenny's laugh on every frequency in the sector. 3 minutes later, the relay exploded in a ring of fire that lit the entire side of the gas giant. Witnesses saw a single human ship drift out from the blaze, dragging behind it the tattered remains of the Empire's fastest signal array. Painted across it in black char, "Love is louder." Kraven lost 3 more systems that week. The Empire held emergency war councils every 22 hours. The stress lines across Kraven's 4 foreheads deepened. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jenny's face, calm, smiling, broadcast to 1,000 worlds now questioning everything. They tried spinning it. Rebel terrorist defile security zones. Deranged human romanticizes chaos. But the narrative wouldn't die. Jenny became a myth. A ghost in the code. A martyr whose only crime was existing. Every time they scrubbed her image, another copy surfaced, painted on station walls, carved into star cruisers, stenciled on officer helmets. Empire censors couldn't keep up. The name Jenny had gone viral. Cole didn't slow down. He was a one-man culture war, weaponizing pop songs, love letters, and photorealistic gifs of Jenny dancing in her kitchen. He attacked the Empire's soul, not just its structures. And he never touched civilians. That was part of the power. People began protecting him. Alien shopkeepers whispered his name with awe. Black market cartels ran supply routes for his missions. Children reenacted his escape from the Devrak vault using cardboard ships and Earth peanut butter packets. The Empire's control slipped with every act of kindness he inspired. But Kraven had one last plan. They called it Operation Cage Heart. It wasn't subtle. The Empire would bait Cole into a system-wide trap using a fabricated transmission. Jenny, alive, imprisoned, crying out. It was cruel. It was stupid. Cole fell for it, of course. But not in the way they expected. The moment the message reached last chord, the ship's engines roared like a beast woken from legend. Cole didn't hesitate. He didn't consult maps. He didn't even check the validity. He just whispered, "I'm coming, Jen," and punched through 7 defense lines like they were paper. When he arrived at the designated trap point, Calax 9, he didn't find Jenny. He found an entire fleet. Over 50 Empire warships, prepped and pointed, waiting. The trap snapped shut. Cole didn't blink. He smiled. Because what the Empire hadn't known, what they couldn't have known, was that Cole had already infiltrated the system weeks prior. He'd studied their ship signals, hacked their fleet protocols, and implanted a dormant AI worm with Jenny's old laptop codebase. He called it Gen X. The moment the trap triggered, Gen X activated. Every single Empire warship's sound system erupted in synchronized blaring of total eclipse of the heart. Lights shut off. Guns reversed. Shields inverted. The fleet collapsed in on itself in a choreographed ballet of chaos. Cole zipped through the carnage, not firing a shot, just watching as his homemade digital ghost tore the most powerful armada in history apart using pop music, grief, and well-timed sarcasm. He didn't laugh. He just whispered, "You should have left her alone." Back on the Imperial capital, chaos rippled through command chains. Half the outer colonies declared neutrality within hours. A third opened trade routes to Earth. A few declared their allegiance to the boyfriend. Rebellions flared like solar flares. Kraven's own guard captain deserted mid-briefing. The Empire tried retaliation. They sent bounty hunters, assassins, professional grudge carriers. One was a silent creature called Draxu, rumored to kill with thoughts alone. Cole met him in a dive bar disguised as a karaoke club. He challenged Draxier to a sing-off. Nobody knows what happened during that showdown, but 2 hours later, the bounty hunter renounced violence and became a jazz musician on a moon resort. Cole paid the bill, tipped the bartender, and left a note behind. Don't send amateurs. The Empire stopped sending hunters. At the next Imperial conference, Kraven slammed his claws onto the table. This is not just a man, he roared. This is a contagion. He was right. But it was too late. Cole's attacks weren't random. Each one peeled back another layer of the Empire's arrogance. Their hypocrisy. Their smug superiority. He liberated a mining colony using only a guitar solo and a hologram of Jenny reading bedtime stories. He broke a mind control algorithm by feeding it reruns of Friends until it achieved self-awareness and left the Empire for a career in stand-up. He gave his pain a body and a name, and now that name was reshaping star systems. And the best part? He never lost who he was. Alone in the last chord, Cole often talked to Jenny's recordings. Sometimes he just sat, holding her scrunchie like it was made of glass. He didn't pretend she'd come back. He didn't lie to himself. He knew she was gone. But grief hadn't broken him. It had forged him. The last time he saw her, she'd kissed him on the cheek, laughed at his terrible haircut, and made him promise he'd take a break after his next tour. Something quiet, she'd said, like farming. Or interpretive dance. Now the galaxy trembled when he showed up. In the Imperial archives, a new term began circulating. Riker event. It meant the failure of a system due to unexpected human irrationality. It meant emotional warfare, coded revenge. Chaos delivered with a smile and a mixtape. It meant that love, illogical, messy, human love, could not be crushed by policy or power. And it meant the Empire had made a mistake so massive, it had no protocol to fix it. On the anniversary of Jenny's death, Cole broadcast a message across every free and occupied channel in known space. It was simple. A single image of Jenny. A caption that read, "She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a spy. She was just my girl." And that was enough. No threats. No demands. Just truth. The next day, 5 more sectors declared independence. The Empire was unraveling. And at its center, one man and his love story burned like a fuse. But Cole wasn't done. He'd heard whispers, rumors that the Empire was building something. A weapon. Not to destroy Earth, but to erase him. A consciousness eraser, they said. A neural purge. If it was true, they were planning to kill his memories of Jenny. That, Cole decided, was a line no one crossed. He traced the rumor to a remote moon. No coordinates on public maps. A secret facility. He armed the last cord. Strapped in. Stared at Jenny's picture. "This is it," he murmured. "One last dance." And he launched. The moon didn't even have a name, just a string of letters and numbers buried in a secure Empire file, flagged red with a warning. Classified research site. No civilian approach. No biological redundancy permitted. In simple terms, if you stumbled across it, you weren't supposed to leave breathing. Or remembering. Cole, Riker didn't care. The last cord dropped out of subspace like a reaper emerging from shadow, its silhouette slicing through the void with quiet menace. The ship had taken damage from a dozen fights and 100 stunts that defied physics, but its engines still purred like a muscle car in a vengeance movie. Cole stood in the command bay, silent, focused. His eyes were bloodshot, the stubble on his jawline now part of his face like battle armor, but the fire in him hadn't dimmed. If anything, it had grown sharper, colder. They wanted to erase her. Not her body. She was long gone. But her imprint. Her voice, her smile, her silly dances in the kitchen. Her laugh when she tried pineapple pizza for the first time and hated it but pretended not to because he liked it. The Empire's new weapon, codenamed Eclipse Protocol, wasn't built to kill. It was built to overwrite memory en masse. A clean sweep. Entire populations would forget Jenny ever existed. And that was a line no empire got to cross. He watched the facility rise from the moon's cratered surface like a wartime fortress. Sleek, angular, laced with autocannons and drone sentries. A place built by minds that feared ideas more than armies. Because Jenny, her memory, had become more than one man's grief. She had become rebellion, and the Empire feared her more than any fleet. Cole locked in the coordinates. No stealth this time. No fancy entrance. He was going through the front door. The last cord surged forward, thrusters flaring like the wings of vengeance itself. Alarms blared across the facility. Sentries lit up. Shields raised. Empire generals screamed into headsets. Human contact detected. Riker. It's Riker. Fire everything. The moon lit up with fire. Cole didn't flinch. He piloted through the onslaught with surgical control, dipping beneath laser arrays and spinning through microbursts of flak. The ship rocked, panels sparking, but it didn't stop. It wouldn't. Not as long as Jenny's voice played quietly through the speakers. I miss you, dork. Don't forget to eat something green. He landed hard, the last cord slamming into the moon's surface like a god's hammer. Dust exploded outward. Cole stepped out of the hatch with a purpose that bent gravity. He wore black armor, simple and unadorned, save for a single silver patch on the chest. Her name. The doors tried to seal. He ripped them open. Inside, scientists screamed. Guards raised weapons. Cole moved like vengeance made flesh. He didn't kill if he didn't have to, but he was done holding back. He tore through defenses, disarmed patrols, used stun grenades and sonic charges like a man possessed. He reached the inner sanctum in under 6 minutes. It was a circular chamber, cold, silent, humming with cruel ambition. A machine pulsed in the center, a towering obelisk of neural webbing and memory cannons. Eclipse Protocol, ready to be deployed across the galaxy. Waiting for one command. Fleet Marshal Craven stood beside it, tall, clawed, and impossibly calm. I knew you'd come, Craven said, his voice low. You humans never understand how to let go. Cole stepped forward, unarmed but unshakable. We're not the ones building machines to forget our mistakes. Craven sneered. You've won hearts. Caused chaos. But this ends now. History will remember you as a glitch. A virus. A footnote in an age of order. Cole's jaw tightened. You don't get to write history. He stepped closer. Craven raised his weapon, but Cole moved first. It wasn't strength. It wasn't training. It was clarity. A man who'd lost everything had nothing left to protect but memory, and that made him dangerous. The fight was brutal. Raw. Steel against claw. Bone against hate. They crashed into the console. Sparks flew. Craven struck with the fury of an empire betrayed. Cole countered with the weight of love lost. It wasn't long. Cole pinned him to the ground, bruised and bloodied, but alive. This is for Jenny, he whispered. And then he did the unthinkable. He didn't kill him. He stood, walked to the console, pulled out the data core labeled Eclipse mainframe, and snapped it in half. No more forgetting, he said. The system imploded. Lights failed. Sirens wailed. The memory bomb had been disabled. Cole turned to go. But something caught his eye, a data reel labeled Subject Archive, Jenny Matthews. A copy. A fragment. Her voice. Her image. He picked it up gently, like holding glass. Then the chamber collapsed. Debris rained down. Cole ran, ducking through falling steel. He burst through corridors, sprinting to the surface. The last cord's engines roared. He leapt aboard just as the moon cracked. The ship took off, barely escaping the fireball that consumed the facility. Behind him, the Empire's final gambit burned. Later, aboard the ship, Cole sat alone in the cockpit. He inserted the reel. Jenny's face appeared on the monitor. She was laughing, dancing, making coffee. Hey, babe, she said to the camera. If you're watching this, it means I got myself into some weird mess, didn't I? Cole swallowed hard. But it also means you didn't stop fighting. And I'm proud of you. Like stupid proud. And I want you to know I wouldn't change a thing. Not the mess. Not the pain. Not a second. She smiled. Go live. Go raise hell. And save a dance for me. The screen went dark. Cole closed his eyes. Outside, the galaxy shifted. The Empire reeled. Systems broke free. Flags were torn down. Statues crumbled. But her name remained. He rose, set a new course. No destination. Just stars. Just freedom. And in the ship's heart, a scrunchie fluttered gently beside the console, tied to the future like a promise. The war was over. But the story? That would last forever.